Phony scandals that have consumed so much attention here, all to come to naught. He's not focused on, pretend scandals. Some phony scandals that have captured the attention of many here in Washington. Fake scandals or things like that. We have to keep focused on the North Star here, the issues that the American people want us to be focused on.
It looks like everybody's getting the memo. The president, of course, is out on the campaign trail, and he's trying to change the rhetoric. He's certainly trying to get his staff to change the rhetoric, and he's trying to get this term phony scandal out there and try to get us to think about something else. Is it a phony scandal? I don't think so. Just this past Sunday, Fox News host Chris Wallace really took it to Secretary of Treasury Jack Lew. He was trying to get him to answer a very specific question, and he was asking about IRS Chief Counsel William Wilkins. Take a look at this.
Have you asked William Wilkins, the IRS Chief Counsel appointed by President Obama, what involvement he or his office had in all of this?
No, Chris, to be clear, there are 1,600 lawyers in the Chief Counsel's office, and there was no suggestion that this went to the one political person in that office. There's no evidence of it. There has been no evidence of it.
Well, wait a minute. Have you asked him?
Chris, I am leaving the investigation to the proper people who do investigations. I don't think it's appropriate for me to do the investigation.
Somebody in the Treasury Department asked William Wilkins what he knew about this.
Chris, there is no evidence that this went to any political official.
Phony scandals that have consumed.
I don't think Chris Wallace got what he was, trying to get. He certainly didn't get an answer. Joining us to fill us in on the IRS investigation is Congressman Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania. He serves on the House Ways and Means Committee. Congressman, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Well, David, thanks for having me on. And I'll tell you what, this is one more example of an administration that pledged to have the most transparent and clear administration ever. One thing, when Jack Lukey said, to be clear, here's what we can hear. When they say to be clear, what they mean is to be clear. We will never answer a question that you ask us. To be clear, don't ask me that question. I'm going to give you the runaround. Now, here's a guy that says he's going to let the investigators do their job, but by the same token, he's sure nothing's reached the level that there's any concern. These people are always the same. Let's move on. Nothing going on here. This is imaginary. These are Republicans trying to start a scandal that isn't there. My goodness, I have never seen in my 65 years an administration so mired down, with more unaccountability, with more scandals, real-life scandals, and no way to answer them. So their way to answer is you just don't answer. You move on to something else. You refuse to answer. And I got to tell you, this IRS thing is not going away. We got more and more people coming forward. They're becoming emboldened. They know that they're going to be protected, that we've got their backs. But think about this. This has been so chilling for most people because they know these folks are in every single part of our life. My gosh, they're trying to get in our health care now. We've got to try and stop that. But everything these folks touch, they have in-depth information. They can just destroy you as an individual or as a business, if anything else. And there's people that play cards. You have to keep handing up every time they do something. You can't afford it.
I want to touch on something because you just mentioned it. Because we all know that the IRS is now responsible for a big part of the mandate of Obamacare.
Right.
How are they going to deal with all this? They have their own issues, and now they're supposed to run Obamacare. My confidence level is very low here.
Well, my confidence level is not low. It's past E. I'm past the red zone now. I'm past the E. Listen, I would just say that most of us that are paying attention, and unfortunately, not everybody is. I'm not criticizing people. I'm just saying this is the way it is. And a lot of people don't pay attention anymore. They're more concerned with other things going on in their life. But this is a case where you don't want them any deeper. Look, they've already proved the level of incompetency that they're at. We don't want them messing with anything else. And the data that they're collecting, David, the information they're going to have on us, the navigators that they're hiring, and they're going to pay these folks. I don't have the number in my head right now, but it is thousands and thousands of people that they call them navigators, and these are help people to get signed up for this health care bill. You're going to give them information. They're being paid a spiff, a bonus, $58 a person that they sign up. And
so there's a real incentive here to do that. It brings up a question that I have, and a lot of people that know me, and I'm on this show, and I'm a visible person. I get to talk to a lot of people like yourself. I get to talk to some of the brightest people on the planet. And one thing I'm not getting an answer to, how is it that former IRS head Lois Lerner can take the fifth, and yet we're all still paying her salary?
Well, do you know what? We're trying to put a piece through, and this week is Stop Government Abuse Week. We have a piece of legislation that is the Government Employee Accountability Act that is going to allow people to be actually fired. When you look at the way this business, the government's run, it is absolutely astounding. But the things that we do in the private sector, the efforts that we go to protect our businesses and our families and stuff, it does not exist in the government. Lois Lerner will be redeployed. She's put on leave with pay. Neely from the GSA, the same thing, leave with pay. They don't lose any vacation time. They don't lose any pension dollars. They don't lose any other revenue. They don't lose anything. What the country has lost is its faith in the way this government.
Well, how about a clawback?
Day after day.
What about a clawback, Congressman? I mean, she's not convicted of anything, obviously. She's taking the fifth. But what about a clawback if we actually find some wrongdoing? Can anything be done there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we're trying to do right now, this week, we're going to be really focusing on it again. This Stop Government Abuse Week, we're going to be instituting very simple, common sense things that are done in the private sector that are not done in the public sector. We're going to start holding people accountable for wrong dealings and malfeasance. We're going to have the ability to actually fire people or institute things to fire people for wrongdoing and absconding with funds and doing the things all of us in the private sector would be held accountable for and held responsible for. We're going to do the same thing with the federal people, and not painting everybody with the same brush, okay? I don't mean to do that. But I do say this, look, when there is absolutely no accountability, zero accountability, when you complete the fifth and walk out, and that's not just Lois Lerner, it's other members of the IRS, and know that you're not going to get hurt with anything. They don't get hurt with one single thing. They walk through these things like walking through a bed of hot coals with heavy insulated boots on. The rest of us have to follow the law.
Some question, Congressman, whether or not she could even take the fifth, because she made a statement prior to taking the fifth. Doesn't that even open up a whole legal ground here that she shouldn't be allowed to take it?
It does. And I think the one thing I think, David, we want to concentrate on is as much as we would like this to move quicker, and as much as the administration would like to shove it out of the way altogether, it's going to be a very thoughtful and it's going to be a progressive piece that we do as we look into and add that all that we can to make sure that people understand we have vetted it, we have found these things to be true. We're not just shooting from the hip and making false statements. We're trying to protect you, Mr. and Mrs. American citizen, from a government that has grown way too big, way too arrogant.
All right, those are broad strokes, Congressman. Those are broad strokes. I'd like to go to some specifics. What are you doing right now? What are some next steps that can be taken in this investigation?
Well, again, we're having people come forward right now. The people that some people would call whistleblowers. We're getting their information. We're looking at all a lot of this is going to come through emails. The staff is not really big on the ways and means that we're looking at. We do have the ability to ask for information. We get it very sparingly. We get it very, at the last minute. We will continue to pour through that and look at it. Here's the thing, I think. Most Americans, again, I said earlier, they would like to see it happen faster. It can't happen faster. It has to happen this way. First of all, we're very limited in what we can do in the House, but we can do the investigation. We can do the exposure. David, you and I both know when we're done with that, it gets passed on to the Department of Justice. They have stonewalled us on every single.
Let me ask you this, Congressman. What about immunity? I mean, that usually spurs things along. We've talked, in the financial world, you get people to roll over by offering immunity. What about that?
Well, I think that's on the table, and I think that's part of what we're doing right now in investigations, because we do know that it always starts out at the lower level and it keeps going up and up and up. Now, you've got some of these people are very vulnerable, so you've got to assure them, look, you can come forward, you can get this problem fixed, we will work with you, and we will get this information, and we will be able to work forward with that information. So immunity, of course, is part of it. It's part of every investigation.
Well, Congressman, keep up the good work. We'll see how this unfolds. Thank you so much for spending your valuable time with